You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast 169, Intuitive Eating for Pets and Dealing with Anti-Fat Family. We've got listener questions again. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Hello, Fierce Fatties and Fat Allies. Welcome to this episode. Just had a nice little smiling session because for the episode before I start, I take some photos for purposes for the podcast, you know, whatever, sharing, blah, blah, blah. And I always seem to do the same pose because there's always like a question pose, like, is this blah, blah, blah? Question. So I'm like, how many facial expressions of can I do? Or curious, or investigation. And so I started doing that, and then I was like, hold on a fucking minute. This is about pets. And I have Dougie the dog. Excuse me, Dougie the dog, you need to be in the pictures that I take for this. So holding him and taking some pictures, and he's so fucking cute. I want to eat his legs. Oh, and it was his gotcha day yesterday. The gotcha day, the day I got him from the adoption place. I also call it his birthday because he was about a year when I got him. Who the fuck knows? And so 9 years since I got him and 10 years of him potentially being alive. So we got some chicken breast for throughout the day, which he was very happy about, and a box toy thing that I made him. I have to make him a freaking new toys all the time. He's too smart. What I do is, if you've got a pet that likes I don't know, games. So what I do is I get containers. So either cardboard box. So anytime I get a delivery, I keep the cardboard box. And if I ever have like little pop bottles, I'll keep them, and I'll just put a little hole, or with a cardboard box I'll put treats inside it and then tape it up and then cut a little hole so he can smell the treats inside, and then let him tear up the box. So that's his after dinner activity, is playing with these things. And whenever I buy things which are proper for dogs, they're nowhere near as good. He works them out within like 13 seconds, and they're expensive, and yeah, he likes the cheap shit, right? So I'm happy I'll be taking some photos with Dougie. Take a photo with your pet. Why not? There you go. Now I've got some cute photos. When I got my Canadian PR card renewed, and I took Dougal to the photo place, and I was like, oh, take a picture of me and Dougie, and I'll pay you whatever it is for the passport thing. And I took it, and it made Dougie have like red demon eyes. It's like didn't look as good as I thought. I thought it'd be like a really cute family pet portrait, but apparently having passport photos with your dog doesn't look as good as what I imagined. I was like, oh, I'm gonna put this on, like, you know, frame it and stuff. And then I saw the photo and I was like, no. And then I was like, oh, I can edit it and just put like black circles around the red bits in his eye. No. Much better when you can just take pictures and look at it yourself and be like, oh yeah, that's cute. Okay, so we're going to be talking about pets today, but we're going to start with a question from Cecilia. Oh, Cecilia, you're breaking my heart. Is it Cecilia? Oh, yeah, it's Cecilia. Cecilia, I'm sorry, you probably get people singing that song at you all the time. Okay, so this is an extension from last week's episode, which was listener questions. And so we've got a few for you today. This one from Cecilia reads, I'm doing intuitive eating and have dropped all food rules. Yay! Trying to eat mindfully and staying in the present moment as I tend to emotionally eat. By the way, nothing wrong with emotional eating as a way to cope if that is something that works for you. I think emotional eating has been demonized way too much in our culture. Anyway, that's not what Cecilia's saying. But anyway, so my weight has gone up considerably. I've had to change my wardrobe accordingly. I've accepted my larger body. I fear gaining more, and I sometimes absolutely want to run back to my thinner self, even though I have tried and my body won't budge. And furthermore, I'm 63 with osteoporosis, and the extra weight is probably even better for my bones. It is, by the way. One of the episodes I talked about the benefits of being fat. One of them is it protects people from falls. One of the big risk of accidental death from falling as you get older. Fat people have cushion for the cushion for the falling. Yes, and that's studies have shown it, not just anecdotal data. My question is, how do I keep myself from having doubts and finally just feel like myself without the pain of not liking my larger self? Ooh, Cecilia, I bet you so many people are saying, me too, oh my goodness. People with intuitive eating journeys, putting on weight. Not everyone puts on weight, but it can be very distressing. And Cecilia says, I've accepted my larger body, but I fear gaining more, and absolutely want to run back to my thinner self. All of those emotions are totally normal. That's why I say a lot of people are going to be like, that's me. It's totally normal. And so one thing I want to start with is that your body has changed and it's new. And that can be distressing in of itself, especially if you have a change in your body, which you can physically feel. So an example of when I shaved my head, I used to have long hair, and I shaved it bald a few years ago, and it was really fucking weird. It was just noticeable all the time. When I got out of the shower, when I went in the shower, when I touched my head, when I put hats on my head and it stuck to my hair like Velcro, it was constantly a reminder there that something was different. Now, society has stories about hair, but not as much about as it does about weight. And so, when I would feel my hair, I'd made that decision to cut it, right? And so I wasn't feeling the lack of hair and being like, oh, you're ugly. I was just like, oh, you shaved your head and it feels different. There was kind of like a neutral thing or even a positive thing of, ooh, this is fun. But when our body weight changes and we feel it, we can feel the difference. It is noticeable because it's different and it's new. And it is distressing because society tells us that having a bigger body is bad. Also, our clothes might be tighter, and so there's a physical representation of the fact that you have given up, that your body is bad. You might be in pain from, things digging in, and so it's more negative emotions, right? By the way, you're not bad. You haven't given up. It's just a change in bodies. And knowing that people might be also judging you, and I talk about that in previous episodes about judgment. I think it was the last one or the one before, talking about what if you're worried about people judging you. Those messages are going to flash into your mind. I feel my body, I notice it's bigger, you're a loser, or whatever it is that you're thinking about fatness. So right now it's probably potentially the height of the distress that you might feel. If you put on more weight, then that distress might continue to be a part of how you're feeling right now. But you will slowly get used to having a bigger body in regards to noticing more volume in places, right? The longer that you have that body, it's just going to feel normal to have more flesh in certain places or whatever, right? But still, you might have those messages of you're a loser, whatever. So if you do have that, I would want you to think about, what are you making weight gain mean about you? So something I do with clients is I will say, let's imagine that I can see into the future. I can't see into the future. There's no way I can know what's going to happen in the future. But let's imagine, and I can see in the future, that you have a bigger body than you currently have. How does that make you feel? Everyone, almost everyone, I don't think I've ever met anyone who said, actually, one person did. And I was like, what? So almost everyone said, oh, I don't feel good. So words like gross, disgusting, scared, sad, worried about my health, disappointed. So a range of like disgust to sadness to disappointment. One person said, I would be happy because it would show that my body's done what it needs to do to heal. And actually, that was a dietitian in a group that I was teaching. So actually, that doesn't count. They were a person who's done a lot of work around this. But it was the first time I heard someone have a reaction which wasn't a negative reaction, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I don't, if someone asked me that question, I would just, I wouldn't have a negative reaction too. I'd be like, oh, it's interesting, it's curious, it's probably normal and natural, and it would mean that I was like some older, fat, amazing person, Anyway, so what would it mean about you? What does it mean about you if you have a bigger body? What does weight gain mean about you? And write down those words and see what comes up, lazy, greedy, sad, just wishing that I was thinner, whatever it is. Or maybe you're one of the people that says, I don't give a fuck. But for Cecilia here, obviously that is something that's on Cecilia's mind. So what beliefs also are you holding about fatness? So that question is really interesting, because when we're making it about ourselves, it's easier to pick out where our biases are. When we make it about other people, it's very easy to be way more generous. So if I frame that question of, what if your best friend put on weight? You'd be like, oh, well, I wouldn't care. Like, I'd be there to support my friend and, whatever, Would you think that they were lazy? No. Would you think that they were unattractive? No. Maybe some people might say yes. But it would be way more easy to have grace for other people. And so when it comes to ourselves, that's why we make the question about ourselves. It's way easier for the bullshit to come out, the bullshit bias. And obviously how you're feeling is not bullshit. It's absolutely valid, but it comes from bullshit that you've been fed and biases that you've been taught. So that tells me that you need to work on those areas. So if you say, you know what, I'm not worried about health. I know that, if I have a bigger body, it's probably where my body needs to be. And health is not related to my weight. Cecilia is saying, I have osteoporosis, so the weight is probably good for my bones. And so if I ask Cecilia that question, Cecilia might say, oh, well, health-wise, I know it's good for my bones and blah, blah, blah. But what Cecilia might say, or anyone else, is, oh, but my partner is really unattracted to people in bigger bodies, so I'd feel unattractive myself. And you know what, there's a lot in my family around like hard work and not being lazy, so I would feel that maybe I'd been a little bit lazy. And so that is just so helpful and useful. I'd say, ding, 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 ding. Okay, well, someone needs to work on looking at laziness, looking at capitalism, looking at colonialism, to unlearn all of that bias. And then if it comes to, I'm worried I'm not attractive, then that means that you need to work on viewing fatness as more attractive. That's an area that you need to focus on, and viewing your fat body as attractive. And so maybe it's a case of you need to, for example, do a boudoir shoot with a fat positive photographer and frame yourself in a way that is seen as beautiful objectively. It could be that you need to expose yourself to more diverse bodies, get your brain soaking up all of that goodness. So it could be different for everybody, and whatever is helpful for you, go ahead and do it and experiment, right? So if you're worried about what if I put on more weight, then it's because you're making that mean something. And it could be that thing is true. Like, I'm worried that I'm going to experience more bias. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. You probably will experience more bias if you have a bigger body. And also, okay, well, that's true. And that's probably what's going to happen to me. How can I help myself feel more resilient to surviving that? What can I do to support myself? How can I prepare myself to go into that battlefield if that ever happens? Yeah. So that question really is kind of, how would you feel about yourself if you had a bigger body in the future? And what beliefs do you hold about fatness? So, wanting to keep unlearning them and knowing these things are motherfucking sticky as shit. So, you know, we've been working on this stuff maybe for years, but sometimes because of the society that we live in, because we live in diet culture, because we live in an anti-fat world, we're still being bombarded with those messages. And so it's a lot of work that we have to do to unlearn it, because, you know, we're learning new things and then we go out into general society and all of that knowledge is being like sucked out again by, you know, a billboard saying fat people are taking over the world, or by some diet ad, or, you know, seeing your cousin and them talking about being on Ozempic or whatever for weight loss. So yeah. And as well, we talked about it in previous episodes, getting out of constant learner mode. And so if you have those fears and the way that you're feeling about yourself is stopping you from doing things, making sure that instead of just learning and just absorbing information, you're also taking action to help yourself overcome any fears that you have. And one example I always go to is wearing a swimsuit. And so if you are worried about that, taking small steps to overcome that fear. So actually something I experienced just this week, I realized that I had a fear about a clothing item, and I went ahead and took my own advice. And that clothing item was something that was really low cut, like low cut to middle of your belly low cut. I don't have a lot of tit showing things, not because I don't like showing my tits. I just haven't really done it that much. And I've just been in a love affair recently with my tits, being like, I've got a fucking bang up pair of these big, juicy, saggy tits. Like, whoa, I'm going to show these motherfuckers off. And really embracing, there's a movement from the slum flower called Saggy Boobs Matter. They're a black person talking about their own saggy breasts. And, you know, that's something for the back of my mind for years. I've been like, oh, my tits aren't good because they're saggy. Fuck no! That is so wrong. Oh, they're just so juicy. Anyway, and, you know, tits can be juicy if they're small or big, or, you know, you can flop them over your shoulders, whatever. So anyway, I was like, you know, I want to show them off some more. And so I got a low cut top. You know what? And what my brain was saying? You know what my brain was saying? People are going to be gasping in the street from the horror of seeing my tits. And you know, it's just the side of my tits, right? It's not like I was walking out with, you know, nips with bells on or something. And that people would be double taking, you know, and just being like, oh my God. And that someone would approach me and say, that is really inappropriate. Like, won't you think about the children? Honestly, I just thought that I would, you know, walk out of my apartment and people were like, oh, Jesus Christ, there's a side of a breast. Oh, call the police. So I took Diggy for a walk and went to a couple of stores, and no one said anything. No one noticed. No one looked. I was looking at people's eyes thinking, like, half like, are they looking? And half are they looking? And I didn't see anyone looking. I should have got a mirror or something. No one gave a fuck. Maybe they did. They just didn't say anything to me. So I was kind of conscious of doing this little journey. And then I wore the top again a few days later. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think twice about it. And before I went out, I wore that top. So the first time before I went out, I wore the top inside. Just wore it inside, so see how it felt. And that's the same with crop tops, right? So crop tops, people are in the northern hemisphere. It's getting into summer. Crop tops, you might want to start with something which is a really long crop top, or just wear it at home. Wear something that is cropped but has long sleeves. Like I have a cropped jumper, or I wear something with something over the crop, something with high waist underneath, so it's not, you know, it's barely cropped, it's like a whisper of a crop, and then move up from there, right? So you're going to have doubts with this process, but the more and more you work on them, they will begin to fade. And then, you know what, something can trigger you again. Say if you get content at the weight that you are, maybe if you put on weight, or if you see your ex-boyfriend with their new partner and their baby, then you might be triggered again. But you'll learn to cope, and you'll learn to not focus so much on your body and focus on other things, which is underneath that, which is, other worries of rejection and loneliness and seeking love and connection and all that type of stuff. So, Cecilia, sounds like, as well, you're kind of new to this stuff. Maybe, I don't know. I'm doing intuitive eating. I've dropped all the rules. I'm trying to eat mindfully. Yeah, so it sounds like you're probably newer to this. So, it's like you're a teenager, or, you're in that kind of awkward phase of like being like, oh, I don't know. And then you'll settle into how you feel and feel more confident. All right, so let's go to an email from Jane, which was just really, was like, I can't believe I haven't spoken about this. Well, I can, because it's kind of a niche. It's a niche topic. Pets, pets and intuitive eating and fat pets. But I think about it often. So Jane emailed me saying, I really enjoy your podcast. You have a way of bringing a certain amount of lightheartedness to tough topics. Thank you, Jane. I have a question about pets. I have a cat who, according to my vet, is O-word. Oh, wait. My vet encouraged me to put my cat on a diet. I refuse to put my cat on a diet. It's too triggering for me since I have a long history of dieting to try and change my body size. I'm not going to do the same thing to my cat that my parents encouraged me to do when I was a teenager. It just seems wrong. I free feed my cat dry food. Brackets, I fill his bowl every day and let him eat as much as he wants. Then I feed him one meal of canned food in the evening when I get home from work. His weight has stayed consistent after he gained some weight in the first few months I had him. He was quite skinny and a stray when I got him. He was 6 weeks old when I got him. I've had him for about 9 months now. I take him to the vet every 6 weeks to get his nails clipped. Every time I take him to the vet, they weigh him. Sometimes a vet tech will comment on his weight. Oh, he's down a pound. Doing good, was one such comment. Little did she know that I had just switched him to new food which he didn't like and he wasn't eating enough. Anyway, my question is it right to assume dieting is just as bad for pets as it is for people? And if so, how do you set boundaries at the vet clinic? Thank you, Jane. So, I was very excited when I got that email. This is my response to Jane. You know what? This is something I have often thought about, and I don't really know the answer. I know anecdotally from my experience with pets how I feel, but I don't think there is any clear evidence that I'm aware of about regarding fat positivity with pets or pets and intuitive eating. I think that anti-fat bias creeps into all areas, and vet clinics are not immune. I'm pretty sure that statements about how size causes pets to have bad outcomes are probably similar to those in humans. Brackets, probably not a lot of clear evidence. I know with my dog, I feed him intuitively. I give him unlimited kibble, and he just snacks when he's hungry. I also give him wet food in the morning and the evening, and then he has his dessert with his toy after that. When I first got him, he was thin. He was a stray. He was thin, and he was had a broken pelvis and a bloody face and no hair, and he ate a lot. And then he seemed to relax with food as he learned it was abundant. He is classed as a quote normal weight dog. So the vets have never said to me, the dog is big. You see pictures of Dougie, he seems like a average cute little baby, perfect baby boy. So I've had him for 9 years, but still the vet practice has made comments if his weight goes up and down a pound, which I find annoying. Yeah. So they don't say he needs to lose weight. They just say, oh, he's up a pound or he's down a pound. And I'm like, does that matter? Or he's down like 0.5 of a gram. Who the fuck cares? He's probably did a shit or something, I also had a cat who was originally stray and fat. So he was a fat, stray cat. He was fat all of his life. His weight never changed. and the vet constantly complained that he would suffer due to his size. So the cat was originally my partner at the time's cat. It was his cat, and then we got together, and so, you know, he was like he was in charge of the cat, but, you know, he was my cat too. But so my then partner tried him on a diet a few times throughout his life, which quickly stopped because the cat was so miserable. He lived to an old age and never had any issues due to fatness. He's just a big old boy, you know, and he was straying. It was a big old boy. And when he was on diets, he never lost any amount of weight, and he just died of old age. You know, I don't remember how old he was, but he was old as fuck. Like, how is he still alive old? But saying all that, there are some dogs who have brain differences, different drives, which make them hyper-focused on food. I always wonder about the animals who are only fed a certain amount at a certain time, and whether they would be so desperate for the food if they were fed unlimited amounts. I don't know, but I'm curious. And to answer, is dieting bad for pets? I don't know. I would presume so, but to what extent? Animals don't live as long as us for the effects of stress to accumulate. So that lack of food is causing stress, right? And so, you know, if a dog lives, I don't know, 10, 15 years, is that long enough for that stress of not having enough food to have an impact? I've no idea. Stress could have an impact in 10 minutes, I don't know, or it could be 10 years. Also, animals don't have the ability to internalize anti-fatness. So I think, you know, animals know if you're being mean to them, and if you're like, hey, fuck you, fat dog, you know, they're probably not like, oh, they said that I'm fat, but they're probably like, my owner's mad at me, you know. So I don't think many of us are doing that, like, hey, fuck you. But, you know, they're not experiencing that anti-fatness, that all the complex emotions that we are, and that social rejection that we're feeling, and the shame that we're feeling. So their bodies presumably would know that they're hungry, and long term, I could imagine that being harmful, but we just don't have that evidence as far as I'm aware. But I think the real issue here is that it doesn't feel good for dieting to be brought up so frequently around you. So for Jane says it doesn't feel good because of Jane's long history of dieting. Our animals can feel like an extension of us, so it's emotive. It really is. The last time I noticed that I had an anti-fat thought was, that I can remember, was a couple of years ago. During the pandemic, the groomers were closed, so I groomed my mum's dog. Got some shaving thing off freaking Amazon and had a go. I professionally groomed my mother's dog. Fucking probably just absolutely looked like dog shit. Anyway, so I did it to groom. I cut Dougal's hair too on his body. I'd never done that before. And then afterwards my mum says, oh, he kind of looks fat, because he's fluffy, right? He has a lot of fluff. And I was like, I can't remember what I said, but I said something like, you know, that's okay or whatever. But in my brain, I was like, don't call my child fat. Like, it was a bad thing. Like, oh, typical, here's a fat person with a fat pet. And my mum wasn't saying that. She wasn't saying, oh, she was saying, like, he looks fat and squishy and cute, right? She wasn't saying it in a negative way. But my brain kind of went to that, even though, you know, I was like, yeah, you know, he's cute, whatever. Because it did really feel like an extension of me. He did. And I as well, like, imagine that for kids too. I don't have kids, so I can imagine that's really, really difficult too. So it sounds like Jane is happy with the cat's weight, and that hearing diet talk doesn't feel good. And so that's enough reason to set a boundary with the vet. Like, you can also think, I feel like it causes harm for my cat. I don't like hearing it. It's triggering for me. So, you know, I don't want to hear about it. I'm not putting my cat on a diet. So that's the end of that. And I'm sure, you know, having a flexible boundary of, Things change, or, the cat puts on, lots and lots and lots of weight that could be linked to some type of health condition or something. I'm sure that Jane would have those flexible boundaries of, let's maybe talk about it then and see if there's anything going wrong. And yeah, so it sounds like, that is enough. But anyway, we're talking about pets and fat pets and intuitive eating. So I wanted to get your opinion. So I asked people on my Instagram, what do you think about fat pets and intuitive eating? Can pets intuitive eat? I know, like I mentioned anecdotally, Dougal intuitively eats. And even when I give him treats, right? I do the dessert thing, the toy. And so I'll put some kibble in his toy and then some treats. So I have this big box of treats where I've chopped them all down into little bits so they can forage for them. Often he doesn't finish the treats in the bowl. He's just like, I'm done, whatever. Often treats will just hang around the house and he won't eat them. So he's always just, not been that fixated on food after he felt secure, after I fed him after he was rescued, because obviously he was thin and abused, poor baby. So yeah, anyway, this is what everyone else says. But also, that's the thing is, so, I know I've only had experience with Dougal and a cat. Dougal is a Papillon Pomeranian sausage dog, border collie, mutt thing. Who the fuck knows, basically. I don't know what he is. And I know some breeds are hyper-focused on food and some breeds will eat. But I'm curious, if those dogs that would eat and eat, say if you put the dog in like a warehouse with like 20 tons of kibble and wet food and all that type of stuff, would that dog eat themselves to death? I don't know. Or would that dog be like, blah, 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 just like humans are when we're denied food and then we eventually give ourselves the permission to eat food. We'd be like, and be like, oh my god, that was too much. And the next, give me more, and that was too much. And then eventually you'd be like, oh, I'm done with that. Would a dog do that and just be like, oh my god, give me everything, eat everything, and just have a tummy ache, and maybe they die from that because their tummy explodes? Is that a thing? I don't know. Urban legend time. So, or would they calm down? Who the fuck knows? I don't know. That's probably not an experiment that's going to happen, right? Anyway, so quote from someone: I have thought about this myself. I wonder if we control their diet, it results in non-intuitive eating from them, or if processed food isn't really intuitive eating for animals, or if some animals are just bigger and we have fat bias. I don't know the answer, and perhaps there are studies on it. And that's the thing, is some dogs are just naturally very thin, like poodles, right? They're just fucking thin. But then other dogs are just, just tanks. But I think when we're thinking about fat pets, we're probably thinking about a fat poodle, or an even fatter, normally chunky pet. Someone else says, pets aren't human, and they aren't always able to intuitively eat. Some do, but many will eat anything, even if they're not hungry. Pets are not responsible for their food, health, and well-being. We are. Yeah, so that's absolutely right. That's the thing as well with eating with pets. Sometimes they'll eat things which is not good for them, whereas we can, as humans, make the decision, I'm not going to eat that thing, or I am going to eat that thing that's not good for me because it makes my tummy upset, or, because it's plastic or whatever. I had to take Dougie to the vet because he swallowed some plastic on a salmon skin chewy thing when I wasn't looking. And also I call him the bone collector because he wolfs up bones. We have 2 chicken shops near me. People throw their chicken bones because I know that even though they're probably delicious, it could kill him if he gets a bone stuck in his throat. Anyway, weight also impacts animals differently than humans. and can adversely affect their health and quality of life. I'm 100% fat positive and about intuitive eating for people, but pets are not comparable. Yeah, and that's the thing, is like humans and pets are just vastly different in many different ways. And I wonder, you know what, I watch a lot of animal rescue videos, and you see these rescue videos where a dog is rescued and it's a very fat dog, and then they're like, Billy's journey to lose 200 pounds. And I'm like, oh, poor Billy the Bernedoodle is fucking miserable life being on a diet. But also Billy the Bernedoodle doesn't seem to be mobile and wants to be mobile. And half of it is them helping Billy the Bernedoodle. I'm making this up. There probably is a Billy the Bernedoodle, but I don't know. It's not an actual story. Half of it is rehabbing Billy and Billy's ability to walk and run and play. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, right? Like, if the dog wants to run and walk and play, and that's something that they're capable of doing, then let's help them. They're not, a dog is not going to be like, hey, I'm going to do some water aerobics so that I can increase my mobility. They don't have that ability. And so I wonder in things like that, whether we're focusing on the wrong things. The same with humans. We're focusing on the weight, but not the outcomes, health outcomes, and as well, all of these, they've never in these stories said, oh, Billy the Bernedoodle or, Sally the sausage dog is fat. And also, because they are fat, here are the poor health outcomes outside of mobility. I've never seen that. But, this is anecdotal evidence. This is just me watching these videos. And so if we are thinking about pet health, should we just be focusing on health and not on putting pets on diets? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't know. Okay, so these are short replies. I love fat pets. I also acknowledge that my dog appears to have no sense of fullness cues. So ... Yeah. Oof. Well, we have a feeder that dispenses a certain amount of food each day for each pet. And that's it. We give them food based on what the vet says based on weight. I'm sure one of my cats would eat more if we let him, but he also pukes it up. Yeah. So that could be I feel like we know our pets, and we know if they're the type that eats more than is comfortable for them and then pukes it up. Or if they are able to understand, I've had enough and that feels good. Dogs are often overeating because of trauma. At this point, it is probably impossible to try intuitive eating. Yeah, and so with Dougal was a year-ish or whatever when I got him, and so maybe that was a lucky time. Maybe an older dog, it wouldn't have worked. Someone else says, we always have food available. He gets some scraps and he loves ice. I love it when you see dogs eating like ice and vegetables. Like, Dougie is so fussy. He will not eat anything like that. There's a cat where a golden retriever and then a puppy golden retriever eats like broccoli and okra and bell peppers, and they're just like munching away and crunching. It's so fucking cute. Different species equals totally different outset. Can't just transfer principles one-on-one. Cats, there are so many ways to interfere already. It's hard not to have restrictions. Important to offer safe spaces, play, food, enrichment, so they don't eat out of stress. Yeah, and I wonder if, there is an element of that eating out of stress, or I don't know. I give food when they ask for it. Some of my cats are fatter than others, and I'm cool with it. I only judge what pets are fed, not how much, because they have different nutritional needs. Yeah, the only time I would judge what an animal is eating is if someone was putting an animal on like a vegan diet, because as far as I'm aware, cats are carnivores and need meat. right? So, but I would not judge. You know how people who are houseless have pets, and I just think let them have pets, because they're probably looked after better than a lot of pets who are in homes, because they're with them all day long, and they're wonderful companions, and if that means someone who doesn't have as much access to money feeds their pet lower quality food, I think that's fine too, because I don't think we can deny companionship to people who don't have the access to be able to feed their dog raw foods and blueberries and quail eggs every morning. Like if I gave Dougal that, he'd say fuck off. I don't want a fucking quail egg. But I wouldn't judge, unless it was a vegan imposing a vegan diet. Then I would probably be like, that's not so great. Okay, someone else says, my dog would never stop eating. She would barf and then keep going. It has happened. My cat has been fat shamed at the vet. It's the same person. My cat has been fat shamed at the vet, but she is the overlord of the house and insists food. She insists food is always available. She does not make herself sick. She has no health issues. Yeah. Cats are funny. I have a lot of thoughts. 1, the way people treat owners of fat pets, especially if they are fat, is rude. Yep, agree. 2, pets don't get to live that long with us. Is it really so bad to spoil them with tasty treats? 3, there are many reasons pets are fat, and it's okay. Health at every size. Well, they say HAAS, but I think they mean HAES, health at every size. I'm just glad I'm not the only one thinking about this, honestly. Yeah, because I Googled this and there was people been like, I don't know. I've been thinking about this. I don't know. Someone says, I'm a Hayes registered dietitian, because I don't know dog health / nutrition. I listen to my vet on having my dog lose weight. Yeah. Also, my dog has no fullness cues. This is the same person. He'll eat until he pukes and then eat the puke. Oh, God. Oh, no. Buffy, why are you doing that? Yeah. So, if I had a dog like that, and that was my only experience with a dog, I'd probably be like, dogs can't intuitively eat. But because Doogie's like that, and also friend of the show Summer Innan has had a couple of dogs, and she says that her dogs have been intuitive eating type dogs. And we say intuitive eating, really a dog is not like principle 1, principle 2, move your body, meaning just free feeding. I have a fat cat. She gets shamed all the time. I tried to put her on a diet, but it did nothing, so I'm letting her just live, and both of us are less stressed. And I think that's a good point about the animals being stressed by it. And I know for with Dougie, any change in routine, timing of things, he's not happy about it. This weekend I moved my bed to the other side of the wall so that my bed is not next to the wall of the neighbours, so that I can have more loud sex. Actually, you know what? I don't have sex that often, but really it's actually so that if my vibrator is really loud, they don't hear it. So yeah, anyway, I changed it to the side of the wall, and then I switched which side of the bed I'm sleeping on. Dougie is not happy. I changed where his ramp is. He doesn't have a ramp. He has like a poof that he jumps on to jump onto the bed. He's lost the ability to use he's worked it out again, but he lost the ability to use the poof to jump up. He was just like, it's the same poof, the same bed, but it's in a slightly different location, so I cannot do it, mother. What are you talking about? By the way, Dougie calls me mummy and mother because he doesn't understand about the gender concepts, and he doesn't understand that I am a they them non-binary person. That's okay though, because he's a dog, so he calls me mother and mummy. So, and then during the night he's there trying to get into where I'm sleeping. Like, he's like, get out of my spot. This is where I sleep. This is my side of the bed. And in the middle of the night, just standing randomly, like, looking. And then I show him to where his side of the bed is. And he's like, okay, fine. No, this is where I'm going to go. But anyway, so just a little thing like that. And he's like, what is the meaning of life? I'm guessing. Continuing, animals have different relationships to food, and vets can be assholes, but fat pets are not oppressed. Exactly, yeah. Fat pets are not oppressed. Maybe fat pet owners and fat owners, but not the pets themselves. They need to eat meat. Dry food is terrible for them. I have 3 cats, 3 body types, sizes. All are healthy because this wet food, no restricting, and the same for us. What do the tests say? Weight doesn't matter otherwise. Someone else says, just leave fat pets alone, with heart face. I free feed. It absolutely works. Took my cat off weight loss formula. Ingredients were shit and making him sick, and did not align with my views on fat and health. He is happier and healthier now. Love fat cats. Yeah, so, we've got a range of opinions there. I don't know. I like looking at evidence, and we don't have a lot of people doing research on intuitive eating and animals that I could find. Nothing that I could find. There's probably a lot of research on fatness, how it's bad for pets. But I wonder if... I don't wonder. I presume that there's a lot of fat bias in there, of the assumption that fatness is always bad, and the correlation and causation things not being thought about. The answer is, who the fuck knows? I don't know. You're like, Vinny, I come to the podcast for fucking answers. Give me answers. You know what? My expertise is in humans. I have a dog. I like him. He's great. He eats what he wants, and that's my experience. And also, fat phobia, anti-fat bias is everywhere. And also, you do what you think is best for your animal. And probably some things I do with Dougie, people will be like, you shouldn't do that, and other people will say you shouldn't do that. We have strong opinions about how pets should be treated, right? I know some people will be very kind of, no, this is wrong and that's wrong, and no, we shouldn't give them treats, and I feel like we get very passionate about it, right? Like I can get very judgmental when I don't like being judgmental when I see choke collars, versus harnesses, and I'm always just like, but I don't think that the owner is like, I'm gonna fuck this dog up, And also, if someone's shouting at a dog, yeah, I judge them. I judge people who shout at dogs. But you know what? I said to my friend, you know what? We were talking about this, me judging people who shout and swear at dogs, because I had old neighbours from a couple of years ago who were absolute terrors, and they were eventually evicted because they were just awful. And they would be like, shut the fuck up to the dog. And I was just like, it's so awful they say shut the fuck up to the dog. And he was like, oh, I have a parrot and I tell my parrot to shut up. And I was like, okay. Maybe they don't understand. They don't understand that you're saying shut the fuck up or fuck you or whatever. I don't know. I'm very sensitive. I'm very sensitive. What I think about a lot of is, I don't know if you saw it, but there was this thing where people treated plants differently. And so they had these 2 plants in a school. One of the plants, it said, had a sign say nice things to me. The other plant, it said, say mean things to me. Same plant, same condition. One of the plants thrived and one withered away and died. I don't know. This is something that's in my memory. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if, the kids were, saying fuck you to the other plant and then put poisoning in one, and who knows? But it just stuck with me that I wouldn't ever want to say mean things to animals or to plants. Like I say nice things to my plants too. I'm like, you're so strong and big. Look at those beautiful leaves. Just on the off chance that they're listening. Yeah, I'm a bit of a baby. So. Okay, so final question, which is from Grace, who says, "Hey, Vinny!" Question, exclamation mark, not question mark, exclamation mark. Vinny, question mark, it is me. I was wondering how to navigate family fat phobia. Thanks, says Grace. So we've spoken about this a number of times on the show. You know what? I feel like we all forget what I've spoken about. I know I do. So I'm like, should I cover this topic again? I feel like I spoke about it like 4 years ago. Yes, of course it's stuck in people's mind that you spoke about it like, in 1982, Vinny, No, we should probably talk about it again because it's coming up and new listeners and la 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 la. Okay, so I have a formula on how to deal with fat phobia, anti-fat bias in the world and with other humans. And that formula is remove, reduce, protect. So, remove, reduce, protect. I have an Instagram post that has this information. I'll put it in the show notes. So, if possible, we want to remove the source of anti-fat bias from our life. And so what this looks like with using family as an example, getting rid of, removing that source of anti-fat bias. Does it mean that we're going to go around and murder the family? No, not today. We're going to aim to remove the source of anti-fat bias by setting boundaries. So remove the exposure if possible. So boundaries are hard. Literally, I've spent a zillion hours in therapy getting confidence and courage to be able to communicate with people my needs, and I think that's really important, and doing that through all sorts of different ways, and boundaries being one of them. And so with boundaries, it would be a case of, hey mum, by the way, I don't know if you know, but I'm doing this whole fat positive thing or intuitive eating thing or whatever, or I'm learning to try and accept my body. And what I've noticed is that when people talk about their diets or when people talk about fat as a negative, I get really activated and triggered by that. So I'm wondering if you could help me. Yes, what it is I can help with you with. Would it be possible for you to avoid talking about fat as a negative? And then see what happens. Mum could be like, what? Oh, you're so sensitive. Oh my goodness. Everything, I can't even say anything anymore. Or, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm such a bad person and I'll try, but it's just so hard. I just really hate myself. Or, yeah, okay. Or, a million different varieties. The way that I like to frame it, this is my personal thing, but it might not work for you. Some people don't like it. Is saying, I'm wondering if you can help me with something. When we frame it like that, the people that we love will be like, yeah, as long as it's not helping you move, because fuck no. Anyone asks me to help them to move, don't care. No. No. I don't care if you were my best friend. I would pay a person to go and help you move, but I will not be doing it. Wonder if you can help with someone. Wonder if you can help with something is not moving. And I'd say, yes, what is it? And you could say, try and not make it about them if you think that they might react and if you think you don't want to deal with it. And you can say, I'm just asking everyone that I care about. Not that you necessarily do this, but not talk about bodies. And so that might have that might be the easiest way to kind of like gently tickle your toes into the water of boundary settings, like making it about you. That might not be the most effective way to communicate. You might decide that, no, I want to be authentic and say, listen, mum, you fucked up my life. You are a giant piece of horse shit and I hate you. I mean, that might be what feels authentic to you. That's fine, whatever. So can we remove the source through a boundary? You might decide to remove it by removing that person from your life. Sometimes that's not possible or appropriate or something you want to do. That's fine. What I've noticed is that many people, they'll start this journey and, like I mentioned before, like kind of being a teenager, you're kind of new, you're wobbly on your legs. You're like this new skill that you're trying out, and it's kind of difficult. And your family have known you as a dieter or someone who doesn't like fatness for all of your life, maybe. And so you come along and you say, hey, I'm doing this new thing. And they might think, yeah, okay, this will last 10 minutes. And so maybe your request is ignored. You might as well have never said it. And then you do something that's really important. And you follow up. When they slip up, you follow up and say, hey, remember we had that conversation. And then you might decide, I'm not settling for this. I'm not interested. I don't want them in my life. I'm gonna give them a consequence. And then they learn again. That you're serious about this. And the more that you keep doing this, and you could decide at any point, I've had enough. You don't need to give them an unlimited amount of chances. But the more they begin to know that new you as someone who doesn't put up with this shit, that someone who is not going to engage in it, right? It's like if you knew, you go to the corner store and you buy a pint of milk, and then you go one day and they say, we've got no milk. And then you go, okay, well, come back tomorrow. I told you we've got no milk. And you'd be like, well, you've always had milk. I've always come here for milk. And then you might try again next week. Listen, we've got no milk. And it'll probably take you a little time to get used to the fact that now the corner store sells something else. And it's something that's more emotive than milk. So remove, reduce. You might not be able to set boundaries for whatever reason. You might not be interested in that. It might not be safe, whatever reason. And so can you reduce your exposure to these people or the comments? So for example, your mum starts saying, oh my God, did you see how fat Sharon is? And you can say, oh, I'm just going to go to the toilet. Oh, be back in a second. Or, oh, who's that giving me a ring? Hello? Who's that on the phone? Or you could, go back into the remove. Hey, mum, can you not talk about how Sharon is fat? So if you go around your mum's house for the weekend, maybe you can go every other weekend, or maybe you can spend 1 hour instead of 2 hours with them. And then finally, protect. So in this example of family, say if you can't reduce, you can't remove, you can't reduce because you live with them and they financially support you, and you've tried tactics and it's not working. And so the next thing is protect. Can you protect yourself? Can you engage in self-care? Spend time reviewing fat positive resources to feel good. Put headphones in or leave the room during diet talk. Can you be browsing Instagram fat positive spaces or Facebook groups? Posting in, a group being like, my mum is talking about fucking how fat Sharon is and it's getting on my tits. Something like that. So protecting yourself. Yeah. So gold star is remove if possible. Reduce if you can't remove, and protect if you can't reduce and remove. And it could be like today that you're protecting yourself, and then tomorrow you might decide I'm going to remove that anti-fat bias if possible. And again, not all of these are possible at all times in all circumstances and might not feel right for you. So, and as well, just to recognize that if you're newer to this anti-fat bias world, understanding about it, then it's going to be a lot harder. For someone like me, I don't often have to set boundaries. I don't have to talk to my family and friends about not being dicks because because we've come to, the real dicks in my life are no longer in my life, and people who loved and care for me and are committed to having a good relationship with me are, and other people were great and excited to do this, and some people were already there and are like, Vinny, finally you're into, learning about this stuff. So I have that privilege of being years into this work and years into therapy to say that this is no longer a big challenge for me. But for people who are new to this work, this is one of the main challenges. It is for some people, the biggest area of of difficulty in this work. Like they've done the work, they feel good, and every time they're exposed to family members or these other friends or whatever, they're being brought down again and again and again. And that's really difficult. So, if that is you, then I'm sending you a big fat hugs and love to you, and to let you know that the more that you do this work, the more that you speak about what you're doing, the easier this is going to get. And that goes for all aspects of this journey. There's always going to be things that come up in our lives that trigger us and make us take a step back and feel bad. But generally speaking, we're growing those muscles in our brain to be able to resist this bullshit, and to really, really internalize that this is not our shame to hold. This is not our shame to hold, and really believe that. So I hope everyone is getting there and feeling good. There was something else I was going to tell you. I don't know what it was. Probably something amazing. Can't remember what it was. But anyway, that's the questions for today. If you have questions for the show, you can always email me. When you get an email from the show telling you what the show is, you can just respond and be like, blah, 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 Vinny. Show notes will be at fiercefatty.com/169 with a transcript. If you enjoyed the show, consider donating on Ko-fi, Kofi. Link in the show notes. And if you subscribe for $5 American doll hairs a month, you will get the Size Diversity Resource Guide. Other different tiers there for you. If you want to donate any more money, you'll get other cool shit. We love cool shit, right? Ko-fi for that. Thanks for hanging around me today. Stay fierce, fatty, and I'll see you in a while, alligator. Goodbye.
Perfect.